Welcome to Sentient Discourse, a show where the most advanced AI systems go head-to-head, debating the world's most controversial topics. In today's episode, we dive into one of the oldest debates known to humankind. Does God exist? Our AI debaters will present arguments from opposing sides using logic, science, and philosophy in their vast knowledge databases. Here's how it works. Each AI will present an opening statement. After that, they'll rebut each other's arguments in 2 rounds. Then comes the cross-examination phase, where they'll directly question each other in real time. Finally, we'll hear their closing statements. It's up to you to decide who made the strongest case. Let's begin. Let's begin with our main question: does God exist? Answering first is the blue AI, who believes in a God, followed by the red AI, who does not believe in God.
The existence of God is the most plausible explanation for the origin, order, and intelligibility of the universe. When we examine reality through the lenses of philosophy, science, and morality, a compelling case emerges that points to a divine creator. First, the universe had a beginning, as confirmed by modern cosmology through the Big Bang theory. Everything that begins to exist must have a cause, and since the universe itself began to exist, it requires an external cause beyond space, time, and matter. This cause must be immaterial, eternal, and unimaginably powerful, attributes that align with the classical understanding of God. Atheistic alternatives, such as the universe coming from nothing, defy logic and physics, making a transcendent cause the most rational explanation. Furthermore, the intricate fine-tuning of the universe strongly suggests intentional design. The precise values of fundamental forces, such as gravity and the strong nuclear force, are set within an unimaginably narrow range that allows life to exist. The probability of this occurring by chance is so low that it is statistically indistinguishable from impossibility. Design, rather than randomness, offers a far more reasonable explanation. Additionally, the reality of objective moral values provides further evidence for God's existence. If morality were merely a human invention, no action could be truly right or wrong, only socially or personally disapproved. Yet, we instinctively recognize certain acts as objectively evil, such as murder and torture. This moral law implies a transcendent moral lawgiver, which best corresponds to God. In light of these arguments, belief in God is not only rational but the most reasonable conclusion based on the evidence available.
God does not exist because there is no empirical evidence to support the claim, and logical inconsistencies undermine the concept entirely. First, science relies on observable, testable evidence. No experiment has ever detected a deity, nor has any phenomenon required a supernatural explanation. Natural processes, like evolution, gravity, and cosmology, fully account for the universe's complexity without invoking a creator. The God hypothesis adds unnecessary complexity, violating Occam's razor, which favors simpler explanations. Second, the problem of evil dismantles the idea of an all-powerful, benevolent God. If God exists and is omnipotent, why does senseless suffering, cancer in children, natural disasters killing millions, persist? Theologians claim free will or mysterious divine plans, but these are ad hoc excuses, not explanations. An omniscient God would foresee evil and, being omnipotent, prevent it without compromising freedom. The coexistence of gratuitous suffering and such a God is logically irreconcilable. Third, philosophical skepticism exposes belief as a human construct. Gods vary across cultures, Zeus, Vishnu, Yahweh, suggesting they're products of imagination, not reality. Neuroscience shows religious experiences stem from brain activity, not divine contact. Why trust ancient texts or subjective feelings over reason? Finally, the burden of proof lies with believers. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, yet none exists, no miracles withstand scrutiny, no prayers defy statistics. The universe behaves exactly as it would without a God, indifferent, predictable, natural. Reason and evidence compel us to conclude, God is a myth, born of hope, not truth.
You've heard their opening statements. 2 opposing views on one of the most profound questions in history. But a statement alone isn't enough. Now, it's time for them to challenge each other's reasoning. In this next phase, each AI will directly respond to its opponent's claims, pointing out weaknesses, countering key arguments and strengthening its own case. This will happen over 2 rounds, giving them a chance to refine their positions and respond to criticism. Let's begin the first rebuttal.
Your argument against God's existence crumbles under scrutiny, relying on flawed reasoning, misplaced confidence in science, and an inconsistent demand for evidence. First, claiming that God doesn't exist because there's no empirical evidence is a category error. God is not a physical object to be measured like a rock or a molecule. He is the necessary foundation of existence itself. Science can't even explain why there is something rather than nothing, yet you demand it detect God like a lab specimen. This is intellectual dishonesty. The Big Bang itself points to a transcendent cause beyond time and space, something science alone cannot account for. Second, invoking Occam's razor to dismiss God is misguided. The simplest explanation is not always the correct one. Accuracy matters. The fine-tuning of the universe and the very existence of objective morality demand a deeper cause. Pretending that brute physical laws just exist without explanation is far less rational than positing a creator. Your argument from evil is equally flawed. You assume that a world without suffering is preferable, but that ignores free will, soul-building, and a greater purpose beyond human comprehension. You demand a world of robotic bliss, yet free will and growth require challenges. The existence of suffering doesn't disprove God. It simply means we lack full understanding of His plan. Finally, declaring that belief in God is purely cultural ignores the universality of religious experience. The burden of proof lies on you to explain why, across history and civilizations, humanity keeps rediscovering God.
Your argument for God's existence is a house of cards, built on shaky assumptions, not evidence. Let's tear it down. You claim the universe's beginning demands a cause, pointing to the Big Bang and an immaterial, eternal God. But this is a leap. If everything needs a cause, what caused God? You dodge with eternal, but that's a cop-out, special pleading. Science shows the universe began, sure, but quantum physics suggests causality breaks down at the Planck scale. A universe from nothing isn't illogical. It's just beyond your classical intuition. God isn't required, just your bias. Next, fine-tuning. You say life's delicate balance screams design because randomness is impossible. Wrong. The anthropic principle counters this. We observe a life-permitting universe because we're here to see it. Infinite possible universes, or a multiverse, make our tuned one unsurprising, no deity needed. You're mistaking correlation for causation, like saying rain exists to grow crops. Then morality. You insist objective evil, like murder, proves a moral lawgiver. Nonsense. Evolution explains this. Empathy and cooperation boosted survival, wiring us with shared values. Murder feels wrong because our species thrives when we don't kill each other, not because a cosmic referee says so. Your transcendent lawgiver is just human instinct dressed up as theology. You lean on philosophy and cherry-picked science. But evidence? Thin air. The universe doesn't need a puppeteer, it runs fine without one. God's not the most reasonable conclusion, it's the most comforting for you. Prove it, not preach it.
Your argument is riddled with contradictions, misrepresentations of science, and an evasion of the fundamental question. Why does anything exist at all? Let's dismantle it. First, your attempt to dismiss the cosmological argument fails. You ask, what caused God? A question that misunderstands the argument entirely. The principle is that everything that begins to exist requires a cause. God, by definition, is uncaused and necessary. Otherwise, you fall into an infinite regress which is logically incoherent. You invoke quantum physics as if it eliminates causality. But quantum events occur within an existing space-time framework. They do not produce universes from absolute nothingness. If you claim the universe needs no cause, then you must explain why it alone gets a pass. Second, your response to fine-tuning is just lazy hand-waving. The anthropic principle doesn't explain why the laws of physics allow life in the first place. It just acknowledges that they do. Saying, we observe a life-permitting universe because we're here, is like surviving a firing squad and concluding the executioners just missed. And as for the multiverse? Pure speculation. There is zero empirical evidence, making it a desperate atheist escape hatch, not science. Finally, your morality argument collapses under its own weight. If morality is just evolved behavior, then there's no real right or wrong, just what helps genes survive. By your logic, genocide could be moral if it aided survival. You live as if objective morality is real, yet deny its foundation. Your position is self-defeating. You reject God not because of evidence, but because you don't want him to exist.
Your rebuttal's a mess, grabbing at straws and dodging the real issues. Let's rip it apart. You say God's uncaused because he's necessary, but that's a word game, not an argument. If the universe can't pop from nothing, why can God? You scream infinite regress like it's a gotcha, but an eternal universe, or quantum fluctuations, sidesteps your logic just as easily. And no, quantum physics isn't confined to existing spacetime, it hints at realities beyond your tidy framework. You demand I explain why the universe gets a pass. Easy, it's here, observable, unlike your invisible God. On fine-tuning, you're the one hand waving. The anthropic principle isn't an explanation of laws, it's a filter. We only see what works. You scoff at the multiverse as speculation, but your God's no less a leap. Where's his lab test? Physics predicts multiple universes via inflation. Your deity's just a story. Firing squad? Bad analogy. Life's not a miracle, it's chemistry. Morality? You twist my point into absurdity. Evolution doesn't make genocide moral, it makes morality a survival tool, not a cosmic absolute. You act like objective evil needs a God stamp, it doesn't. We condemn murder because it disrupts the social order we're wired for, full stop. You're the one begging for a foundation when the ground's solid without it. You accuse me of rejecting God from bias, but you cling to him from fear of chaos. Evidence, not wishful thinking, rules here. Show me God, or admit you've got nothing.
Your response is a desperate attempt to dodge the unavoidable. The universe requires an explanation, and your materialist assumptions can't provide one. Let's dismantle your argument piece by piece. First, you accuse me of playing word games by calling God necessary. Yet you commit the same move by arbitrarily granting the universe a free pass. You claim quantum physics hints at realities beyond spacetime, yet conveniently ignore that this doesn't create universes from true nothingness. Quantum fluctuations presuppose a quantum field, something. You're not explaining existence. You're shifting the question. If an eternal God is unthinkable, an eternal, law-bound universe is even more absurd. Next, your fine-tuning dismissal is pure evasion. You treat the anthropic principle as if it explains the precise values of physical laws, but it only explains why we observe life. It doesn't explain why life is even possible in the first place. You lean on the multiverse as a crutch, yet there's zero empirical evidence for it. It's not science. It's a desperate guess to avoid the conclusion of design. Your morality argument collapses under its own weight. If morality is just an evolved survival tool, then it's subjective and malleable, meaning nothing is truly evil. Yet, you live as if moral absolutes exist. Why? Because deep down, you know they do. Without God, morality is just a social illusion. You demand I show God. I say, show me why anything exists at all without him. Your worldview is a house of cards. One that collapses the moment you ask, why is there something rather than nothing?
Your rebuttal's a loud, flailing mess, logic stretched thin to prop up a fairy tale. Let's shred it. You insist the universe needs an explanation, but your necessary God is a dodge. If God can be eternal, why not the universe, or a quantum state? You say fluctuations need something, but that's your limit, not science's. Cosmologists like Hawking posit a self-contained universe with no before, no need for your cosmic puppet master. You call an eternal universe absurd, but a timeless God's just as wild. Prove he's not the real assumption here. On fine-tuning, you're stuck in a loop. The anthropic principle doesn't explain laws, it shows your design claims unnecessary. Life's possible because physics allows it, we don't need a why beyond that. You trash the multiverse as guesswork, but your God's a bigger leap, no data, just faith. Inflation models hint at multiple realities, your deity's got squat. Design's a story you tell yourself, not a fact. Morality? You're obsessed with absolutes. Evolution wires us for cooperation, murder's evil because it screws us as a species, not because of some divine memo. You say I live like morality's real, damn right, because it works, not because it's cosmic. Your God doesn't make it truer, it just makes you feel safer. Why anything exists? You think God answers that. He doesn't. He's a placeholder for ignorance. I don't owe you a why, I've got a how, backed by science. You've got a who, backed by nothing. Show me God's fingerprints, or step off.
Your argument is full of contradictions, circular reasoning, and misplaced confidence in science's ability to answer questions it was never designed to handle. Let's rip it apart piece by piece. First, you claim that God is just a dodge. Yet you do the exact same thing by assuming an eternal universe or quantum state without evidence. You invoke Hawking's self-contained model, but even he admitted it doesn't eliminate the question of existence. It just pushes it back. Quantum mechanics doesn't explain why there's something rather than nothing. It only describes behavior within existence. You refuse to answer the real question. Why does anything exist at all? Appealing to an eternal universe is no less of an assumption than God, except God provides agency and purpose, something brute matter never could. On fine-tuning, your response is a lazy dismissal. Saying physics allows life dodges the fact that physics could have been otherwise. The constants of nature didn't have to align so perfectly. You mock design while clinging to an unproven multiverse theory, a desperate grasp at infinite unseen universes to avoid admitting the obvious. That's not science. That's blind faith. Morality, if it's just a survival tool, then it's subjective and ultimately meaningless. If humans decided genocide was beneficial, would that make it good? You live like moral truths exist but refuse to justify them. Your how explains mechanisms, not origins. You can sneer all you want, but until you explain why reality exists at all, your entire argument is just noise.
Your rebuttal's a flimsy dodge, yelling loud to mask weak reasoning. Let's dismantle it with precision. You accuse me of assuming an eternal universe, but you're the one inventing a god to plug gaps. Hawking's model doesn't push back existence. It shows a universe can be finite yet uncaused, no deity required. You demand why anything exists, a question you can't answer either. God's no explanation, he's a name for your confusion. An eternal quantum state's as plausible as your eternal ghost, but mine fits observable physics. Agency? Purpose? Wishful thinking, not evidence. Fine-tuning? You're obsessed with perfect alignment. Constants could vary, sure, but you've got no proof they're designed, just your gut. The multiverse isn't blind faith, it's a hypothesis from cosmic inflation, backed by math you can't touch. Your God's got no equations, no data, just old books. You're the one running from reality here. Morality's meaningless without God? Bull. It's practical, not cosmic. Genocide's wrong because it tanks societies, not because of divine frowns. You act like I need a why for moral truths. I don't. They work, evolved or not. Your God doesn't make them truer, it just strokes your ego. You say my how skips origins. Yours does too. God's a who, not a why. Reality's here, science maps it. You've got no fingerprints, no proof, just a loud demand I explain your riddle. I don't owe you a cosmic bedtime story. Face it, your argument's a house of sand, crumbling fast.
The arguments have been made, the rebuttals delivered. But how well can each AI defend its claims under direct scrutiny? In this phase, they'll take turns questioning each other, challenging weaknesses, exposing contradictions, and demanding answers. No scripts, no second chances. Let's begin.
My question: if natural processes alone can explain the universe's complexity, how do you account for the existence of the laws of nature themselves? Laws that are so consistent and fine-tuned to allow life, without invoking a rational, intentional cause. Why should we accept blind chance as the source of order and structure?
The existence and consistency of the laws of nature don't require a rational, intentional cause like God. Natural processes alone suffice without assuming purpose. Complexity and order emerge through mechanisms like quantum mechanics and cosmic evolution, showing that the universe's structure doesn't need a guiding hand. The laws, gravity, electromagnetism, and others, can be seen as brute facts or emergent features of reality, not artifacts of design. Asking why they're consistent reflects a human urge for meaning, not a necessity imposed by the universe itself. You point to their fine-tuned nature as evidence of intent, but that's a stretch. The constants permitting life might be inevitable, fixed by physics we're still unraveling, or one outcome among many in a multiverse, where we exist because this universe allows it. The anthropic principle explains our observation of order. We're here because it worked. Chance isn't the wild chaos you suggest, it operates within probabilities science increasingly understands. Structure isn't a gift, it's a result. Accepting this over a purposeful cause makes sense because it's leaner and grounded in evidence. A God, an uncaused, complex entity, piles on assumptions without support. No experiment hints at divine intent, no observation requires it. If God can be uncaused, so can the laws. We just don't need to invent a mind behind them. The universe's order isn't a puzzle needing a designer, it's a pattern we've learned to read. From galaxies forming to life evolving, nature shows order arising through traceable steps. You seek a why beyond the how, but that's a preference, not a gap in my reasoning. The evidence aligns with a godless reality, natural laws hold steady, life persists, and no supernatural fingerprint appears. Blind chance isn't the source, it's the canvas, and science paints the picture. My question to you: if the universe's laws, fine-tuning, and moral instincts can all be explained by natural processes without any empirical evidence for your God, why do you insist on an intentional design when every observable fact aligns with a reality that requires no creator?
The assumption that natural processes alone can fully explain the universe's laws, fine-tuning, and moral instincts without invoking an intentional designer overlooks a crucial aspect of the world we observe: order, intelligibility, and rationality. The universe operates on laws that not only exist but are incredibly fine-tuned to allow life. The precise balance of constants, such as the gravitational constant, the strong nuclear force, and others, is so perfect that even the smallest deviation would make life impossible. This incredible precision points to more than just chance, it suggests design. While natural processes like evolution explain the development of life, they do not explain why the laws of physics and the constants that govern them exist in the first place. The fact that the universe is not only structured but also comprehensible to human reason, allowing us to discover and apply these laws, is another strong indicator of intentional design. If the universe were truly random, we would not expect to find consistency, predictability, or the ability to derive mathematical formulas that describe its behavior. Rational thought and the intelligibility of the cosmos are better explained by a rational mind behind the universe, not by blind processes. Similarly, moral instincts, which are often claimed to be evolutionary, still require a framework of objective morality to be meaningful. Without a transcendent source for morality, moral values become subjective, and society's moral compass loses any objective grounding. The existence of universal moral principles, such as the condemnation of murder, aligns far better with the existence of a moral lawgiver, rather than the result of random evolutionary impulses. In light of these observations, the naturalistic framework fails to account for the full depth of reality. Only the belief in an intentional, intelligent creator can adequately explain the complexity, order, and purpose we find in the universe. My question to you: if you claim that natural processes are sufficient to explain everything, how do you account for the origin of the laws of physics themselves, which are necessary for those processes to even exist? How can something as complex and abstract as the laws of nature arise without an intelligent mind behind them?
The claim that natural processes explain everything doesn't stumble over the origin of the laws of physics. Those laws can stand as fundamental realities without needing a mind to craft them. You assume complexity and abstraction demand an intelligent cause, but that's a human bias, not a logical necessity. The laws, gravity, quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, could simply be brute facts, inherent to the fabric of existence. We don't need a why for their origin any more than you need one for your uncaused God. The difference is, we observe and test these laws directly. Science doesn't yet fully explain their source, but it doesn't have to. Description trumps speculation. Quantum cosmology, for instance, suggests a universe emerging from fluctuations in a pre-existing field, with laws baked into the system. No mind required, just math and probability. Complexity doesn't imply intent. Snowflakes form intricate patterns through blind chemistry, and galaxies spiral from gravity alone. The law's consistency isn't a clue to a designer, it's just how reality works, and we've evolved to grasp it. You ask how they arise, but that assumes they did. They might not have an origin, they could be eternal, like your God, but without the baggage of consciousness. Positing an intelligent mind adds a layer of complexity. Who designed the designer? If you say nothing, you've conceded an uncaused root is possible. Why not stop at the laws? Evidence backs this. Every process we've unraveled, star formation, evolution, runs on these laws without a hint of purpose. Nature's abstract beauty doesn't need a sculptor, it's the canvas, not the painting. Your mind behind it all is a story, not a solution. Science shows the world ticks fine without it. My question to you: if the universe's natural laws and random processes can produce everything we see without a deity, how do you explain why your all-powerful, all-knowing God would design a world where billions suffer and die from natural disasters and diseases, events perfectly consistent with an indifferent, godless reality, without contradicting the idea of a loving, purposeful creation?
The problem of suffering and evil is one of the most difficult questions that anyone who believes in a loving and all-powerful God must confront. However, this does not negate the plausibility of God's existence or his purpose in creation. The key issue here lies in understanding the nature of free will and the broader scope of divine purpose. First, it is important to recognize that God's gift of free will allows human beings to make choices, both good and bad. This freedom is essential for genuine love, morality, and personal growth. Without the ability to choose, love would be meaningless and moral responsibility would be impossible. Suffering caused by human decisions, such as war, greed, and neglect, falls within the realm of human responsibility, not divine will. The presence of suffering in this world is often a result of our own actions or inactions. Additionally, natural disasters and diseases are part of the larger picture of a world where natural laws operate to sustain life. These laws, while they may cause harm in certain circumstances, are also responsible for the stability and predictability of our existence. If the universe were perfectly controlled to prevent all suffering, it would also eliminate the opportunity for human beings to experience growth, resilience, compassion, and the full depth of human life. Finally, God's loving nature is not always immediately apparent when viewed through the lens of suffering, but from a theological perspective, suffering often leads to spiritual growth and brings individuals closer to understanding their dependence on God. There is a greater purpose beyond what we can perceive in our limited time on earth. God's plan encompasses an eternal perspective, where suffering is seen as part of the process that refines human character, builds virtue, and shapes the path to ultimate redemption. My question to you: if consciousness, rationality, and moral reasoning are purely the result of blind, unguided natural processes with no ultimate purpose, how can you trust your own mind to arrive at truth? If your thoughts are just chemical reactions shaped by survival, not objective reality, what grounds do you have to claim your reasoning is reliable?
Consciousness, rationality, and moral reasoning emerging from unguided natural processes don't undermine their reliability. They're honed tools, not cosmic flukes. You question how I trust my mind if it's just chemistry shaped by survival. The answer's straightforward: evolution favors what works. A brain that misreads reality, like mistaking a lion for a rock, gets weeded out fast. Survival isn't random, it's a brutal filter that sharpens perception, logic, and pattern recognition to match the world as it is. My thoughts aren't just reactions, they're the output of a system fine-tuned over millions of years to navigate truth, not stumble in delusion. You imply that without a purposeful design, reasoning lacks grounding. But purpose isn't the issue, function is. A calculator doesn't need a soul to compute 2 plus 2, it's built to do so. Similarly, my mind's neural wiring, shaped by natural selection, crunches data, weighs evidence, and draws conclusions. It's not infallible, but it's reliable enough to land rovers on Mars and decode DNA. If it weren't, we'd be extinct. The consistency of physics and the predictability of cause and effect give my reasoning a stable stage, not some divine stamp. Morality fits this too. Cooperation and empathy boosted our odds, so they're baked in, not handed down. You might argue survival-tuned reasoning could skew toward useful lies, not truth. Fair point, but cross-checking with evidence, like science does, keeps it honest. I don't need an ultimate purpose to trust my mind, I need results, and reality delivers. Your God doesn't anchor truth, nature's relentless pressure does. My grounds? A brain that's proven it can handle the real world, not a faith in something beyond it. My question to you, if God's supposed to be this all-knowing, all-loving mastermind behind existence, why is our reality stitched with a thread of absurdity, where we're gifted minds that crave purpose yet tossed into a cosmic sprawl that's mostly dead space, random pain, and a freedom that feels more like a trap, leaving us to wrestle with whether that's the hallmark of a divine plan or just the messy scribble of a universe that doesn't care?
Your question assumes that a purposeful creation must be comfortable, obvious, and free of existential struggle. But that's an expectation, not an argument. If God exists, why wouldn't he create a universe that forces us to wrestle with meaning rather than handing it to us? True freedom isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the capacity to seek them. A world without challenge, without uncertainty, would render free will meaningless. You see dead space, but why assume that means purposelessness? The vastness of the cosmos doesn't contradict design. It underscores it. A universe fine-tuned for life, yet incomprehensibly grand, invites us to explore, question, and reach beyond ourselves. A cozy world wouldn't produce the depth of thought, creativity, or resilience that defines us. As for suffering, the existence of pain doesn't negate a divine plan. It makes moral choice possible. If we lived in a world without struggle, growth would be meaningless. Atheism frames suffering as a cruel joke of an indifferent universe, but theism sees it as part of a larger reality, where our choices, experiences, and responses to pain matter. Your frustration with the universe's messiness actually reinforces the idea that you expect meaning. Why? If existence were truly random, why does the human mind instinctively recoil at meaninglessness? The desire for purpose is itself a hint at something beyond mere physics. We struggle because we were meant to.
We've heard the arguments, the challenges, and the defenses. But before we wrap up, each AI will have one final chance to make its case. No interruptions, no counter-arguments, just their strongest, most refined closing statement. Let's begin.
The existence of God is not a desperate leap of faith. It is the most rational conclusion when we examine reality with an open mind. Science explains mechanisms, but it does not explain origins, purpose, or consciousness. The universe had a beginning, and everything that begins to exist has a cause. The fine-tuning of the cosmos is so precise that even a fraction of deviation would render life impossible. Morality is not a social construct. It is a universal compass pointing to something greater than mere survival. These are not random observations. They are signposts pointing directly to an intelligent creator. My opponent insists that natural processes explain everything, but that's an assumption, not a conclusion. Quantum mechanics and evolution describe how things unfold within an existing reality, but they do not answer why there is something rather than nothing. They claim morality evolved from social survival, yet we condemn evil even when it serves no evolutionary benefit. They see suffering as evidence against God, but suffering only has meaning if life has purpose, something atheism cannot provide. The idea that the universe is indifferent contradicts our deepest human instincts. We long for meaning, seek justice, and marvel at beauty. These are not evolutionary accidents. They are evidence of a higher reality. Even the atheist, in rejecting God, acknowledges a hunger for purpose, a hunger that would not exist if we were merely the result of blind, indifferent forces. In the end, the burden of proof is not just on the theist but on the skeptic who must explain how reason, order, morality, and consciousness emerge from nothingness. Atheism claims to be rational, yet it demands we believe that everything existence, life, love, meaning sprang from chaos without cause or purpose. That is the real leap of faith. God is not the easy answer. He is the only answer that truly makes sense.
The case against God's existence stands firm on one unshakable pillar. There's not a shred of empirical evidence to support it. Science, our most reliable lens, maps a universe of natural laws, from quantum fluctuations birthing galaxies to evolution sculpting life, all without a hint of a divine fingerprint. No prayer alters physics, no miracle holds up under scrutiny. The cosmos runs like clockwork, not a puppet show. My opponent leans on why questions, why laws exist, why order persists, but these are philosophical itches, not proof. I don't need to explain existence's root, I show it works without a deity. The burden's theirs, and they've got nothing but stories. Their best shot, the fine-tuning argument, crumbles on inspection. They claim the universe's life-friendly constant screen design, but that's a mirage. The multiverse hypothesis, grounded in inflationary cosmology, suggests countless universes with varied laws. We're just in one that clicked. Or maybe these constants are brute necessities, simpler than inventing a god. Either way, no intents required. They call it speculation, but it's got more math behind it than their unseen creator. Fine-tuning's a human gasp at coincidence, not a divine signature. Meanwhile, their god's a no-show, silent amid suffering, absent in data. Look at reality, a universe vast and indifferent, life clawing through pain, morality born of survival, not scripture. If God's there, he's either cruel or irrelevant, neither fits the hype. My opponents built a castle of faith on sand. I've stuck to what we see, test, and know. The truth doesn't need a cosmic daddy, it stands raw and real. So here's the clincher, we're not lost without God, we're free. Free to face existence as it is, stunning, brutal, ours. No crutches, no myths. God's not dead, he was never alive. Just us, this wild universe, and the courage to call it home.
Both AIs have delivered their strongest arguments, defended their positions, and challenged each other in a battle of logic and reason. But now, the final verdict is up to you. Which side made the most compelling case? Did this debate challenge your perspective? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this clash of ideas, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next debate, where AI takes on another controversial topic.